Hello and welcome to the CSBP Market Update. My name's Aiden Boyham, filling in again for Grade Johnson, and joining me this time on the Market Update we have our Supply Chain Managers, Mark Robinson and Jonathan Hams. Robbo, Hamsy, how are we going today?
Good, thanks Aiden.
Going well, mate, thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Hamsy, let's jump straight into phosphates. On the last episode we talked with Ben, there was a bit of discussion around pricing movements and the catching the falling knife scenario. Can you give us a bit of an update on what's happening in phosphate markets at the moment?
Yeah, sure, Aiden. So since you spoke with Ben in November, the market has continued to drift down, albeit at a slower rate than we saw during October and November. Publications have described the market as either having a bearish tone through to being stable to soft. So essentially it's a buyer's market at the moment.
Growers tuning into the market update would have heard quite a few times, particularly in recent months, about the need for commitments at this time of year. Hamsy, can you just explain quickly the landscape that we're operating in at the moment and why this is becoming more important as we approach Christmas and 2026?
Our import program's well underway. So we've imported cargoes of raw materials, raw phosphates, and also finished products, so products like an MAP. So we need the raw materials for our granulation plants. That's been running for about a month. And growers will want to start collecting phosphates in January, can you believe it? So whilst it's still harvesting, we know there's going to be demand early in the new year. So we need to have product in our sheds so that the import program has commenced. And the reason we commit now, it's as those reasons I've just mentioned, but also we've got to make sure that we fit in and work in with our suppliers because, for example, for a December loading cargo, it's not like going to Coles and buying something off the shelf. So a December loading cargo, the planning for that will have been going on for about 6 months. So we've got to work in with our suppliers, their supply chains, as we work in with our customers as well.
And it's fair to say that, even if you could do that, Coles scenario, the WA market logistically, we just couldn't handle, massive volumes on that scale at the drop of a hat.
That starts with we haven't got the jetty and the wharf capacity to bring that many vessels in that tighter period. There's not enough storage sheds in WA, and then the trucking fleet couldn't cope as well. So that's why it is staggered.
So with that in mind, Hamsy, what can growers do?
Well, I guess CSBP and really all other fertiliser companies nationwide have commenced their import programs. So we've got a known cost position. We can't predict when the market may or will turn. So with that in mind, one approach is to start hedging as they do with grain and all their other inputs in their farming enterprises and potentially bite off chunks. So it might be up to 30, 40, 50%. Leading up to the new year, and that way they've got a known cost position. So should something happen with markets turning and prices spiking, they've got a cost position and they've hedged and they can all work towards a dollar cost average, as you've spoken about in previous episodes.
Well, if you are ready to hedge and take a little bit before Christmas, please get in touch with your CSBP account manager today and they'll be happy to help you out. All right, thank you for that, Hamsy. Let's switch to nitrogen now, Robbo. Can you give us an insight into what's happening in global urea markets at the moment?
Yeah, sure thing. So as of late, the market's been fairly subdued, fairly quiet. The main action in town is coming from India. So India buy huge volumes of urea in these tenders. The latest one, which closed a couple of weeks ago, they were chasing 2.5 million tonne. They achieved 1.5. Prices are a little bit lower than producers and traders were thinking. The inventory across the country is now at a comfortable level, so they're not expected back in the market till January sometime. The other aspect is the US tariffs, where we'd seen prices escalate for the urea producers in the US. President Trump removed those tariffs and we've now seen prices fall. The other aspect is CBAM, so Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. It's an EU policy basically putting a cost on carbon for imports. That kicks in 1st of January. And what we've seen is a bit of a flurry of activity of imports of urea from the Middle East getting in before that takes place.
So that's the lay of the land globally, Robbo. If we switch our attention to back to WA, current urea pricing obviously has a limited impact on the WA market given we're out of season, but there is a little bit on NS that growers might want to know about at the moment. Could you share some insight on that for us?
Yeah, so coming through on the forecast is increase in canola plantings. So we're getting our heads around that and making sure we're adjusting our planned imports accordingly, making sure it's here earlier and slightly more volume ahead of previous years. And
Hamsy, just quickly to ask you a question, nitrogen related. What's happening with Flexi-N and UAN? Anything growers need to know about?
We're well into our pre-fill program. So good volumes of Flexi-N were collected or dispatched to customers pre-harvest. Understandably, we have a bit of lull in collections during harvest when all the truck drivers are busy with harvest. At the moment, we're both importing and manufacturing Flexi-N, which gives us really good flexibility during the pre-fill and in season. And we've got plenty of Flexi-N available for both contracting and for collections.
All right, well, thank you both for the nitrogen update there. Let's move on to potassium now. Robbo, what's happening globally there?
Prices are stable, and we expect them to be into Q1, maybe even Q2 next year. Supporting that, there was a recent trade concluded out of China. So there was Chinese Large Consortium, which is a group of state-owned producers and distributors, recently agreed for pricing for supply all the way through next year with Uralkali, and that was at pricing, I think it was $2 higher than current pricing. So, that effectively creates a floor, at least for the next 6 months. But yeah, pricing stable and supply looks good.
Thanks, Robbo, for that insight on global potash markets. Hamzy, can you tell us what's happening locally?
Vessels are arriving, granulation plant is running, and we're manufacturing products like the Agresses, the K-Tills and the Macro Pro. With the potash flavour, all the Macro Pro this year will be manufacturing using locally sourced sulphate of potash, so from SO4's Lake Way project. And it's great to have a local feedstock coming in for our locally produced products.
You've just reminded me, while we're on compounds, there's still time to get into our Winner K-Till Tinny competition. Closes on Thursday, the 18th of December. So if you haven't yet, make sure you jump onto the CSBP website, check out the K-Till Extra webpage for all the terms and conditions. We've covered the three main nutrients there, gents. We've covered phosphates first, nitrogen, and then potassium. Is there anything that we've missed?
I think you covered it all, mate.
You're doing well.
Well done, Aiden.
Thank you all very much for joining us on the CSBP Market Update this time. We look forward to seeing you again soon.
This podcast is provided as general information only. The content of this podcast is not a recommendation and has been prepared without taking your objectives or circumstances into account. Before acting on the content of this, you should consider its appropriateness to your circumstances and seek independent advice.